How to put on muscle mass for skinny guys, the vegan version. And it's only the vegan edition because I'm a vegan person, so I have to give you the vegan edition. To be honest though, I'm pretty sure the tips that I'm gonna give you in this video are applicable to anybody. It does not just apply to vegans. But of course, I have to throw that disclaimer out there because if you're one of those betas that thinks that being vegan is somehow making it even harder for you to gain muscle, I have to give you that disclaimer so you can scroll on by. So in this video, we're gonna talk about 3 particular areas of fitness. Number 1 is diet, of course. Number 2 is the actual workout structures. And number 3 is rest and recovery. All of these things are integral for any fitness goal, but particularly for putting on muscle mass, there are a couple things that you have to be mindful of. So I come from a past of being a really skinny person. I didn't really realize just how much weight was an issue for me until I got to high school and joined the wrestling team. In 9th grade, I weighed a whopping 106 pounds. And yes, I was not 6 foot whatever yet, but at that point, I realized just how much that this was gonna be an issue for me if I wanted to be competitive. Now I realize this is not just an issue for younger people. The way that you are perceived by the external world, and especially by yourself, matters. And when you feel as though you're not in alignment with the best version of yourself, you're underweight, maybe you're overweight, one of the easiest ways that you can build yourself up, reach, self-developed status is by working on your fitness. I also have a condition called pectus excavatum. Pectus excavatum is when you have additional bone mass on your lower ribs, which causes the cartilage in your solar plexus region to concave. This led to people bullying me when I was younger, essentially saying that I had 4 nipples. And this was one of the main things that drove me to get deeper into fitness, which drove me to ultimately first and foremost build a 6-pack, but then get consistent in the gym working out. And so I say all this just because whether you are younger, whether you are, in your 20s, 30s, 40s, I understand what it means to feel as though you are underweight. I understand the lack of confidence. I understand the overall feeling as though you're not, capable physically. I understand that feeling as though you are not sexually marketable, whether you are straight, whether you are gay. Every single person feels that sense of inadequacy. And again, I think that focusing on your fitness is one of the best possible things that you can do to boost yourself up. My hope in this video is that you can use these 3 sections, diet, fitness, rest, and recovery, and build the best possible physique for yourself. I do not plan to hold anything back. Every single piece of knowledge that I have, I am willing to give you guys. I'm gonna do my best to do it in this video, but of course, if you have comments, questions, drop them below. And at the time of making this video, I do have space available in my coaching program. So if you're like, you know what, I know that I need the accountability. I really want somebody that knows more than me to build out a plan for me and have some kind of one-on-one mentorship, click the link below to apply. The first session is always free, and I am more than happy to do everything I can to help you reach your fitness goals. And of course, a caveat to this, you don't have to be vegan. If you are vegan though, this is coming from the perspective of somebody that has been vegan for almost 7 years at this point. I am not withering away. I do not have protein deficiency as far as I know. And like I said, you definitely do not have to be vegan to get the most benefit out of this video. But if you're somebody that is concerned about not getting enough protein, feeling like because you're vegan or because you're on a plant-based diet, you're not gonna have as much energy, you're not, you don't have as much capacity to build muscle, I 100% sympathize with that, which was what inspired me to make this video. Again, this is a compilation of the knowledge that I have gained over the last 7 years of being vegan, as well as the last 14 plus years of being consistent working out in the gym, various disciplines, not just weightlifting, not just bodybuilding, but mixed martial arts, all kinds of different sports. I was even a swim team coach for a while. But again, I know what it means to come from a background of being a naturally skinny person, having an exomorphic body type, and then putting on a significant amount of muscle mass and maintaining it ideally for the rest of my life. I also plan to continue making gains, continue going through various physical challenges, including bulking, powerlifting, these kinds of things. So if that's interesting, if you want to see my journey, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. So let's jump in. The first thing that I'm going to talk to you about is nutrition, dieting, protein, carbohydrates, all that kind of fun stuff. You've probably heard this a million times, but there is one bottom line that you need to be focusing on, and that is eating more food. All good and nice. You already knew that. But how do you actually do it? How do you make the time? How do you create the schedule? How do you make sure that you're prioritizing foods and recipes that are going to give you that most bang for your proverbial buck? I'm actually just now realizing that I need to add this to the blog post that is linked below, but one of the most healthy things is, I know it sounds cliche, but eating healthy foods. Healthy foods are just easier to eat in mass, I find. If you're eating a lot of food that is super high in sugar, that is super high in salt, you're gonna find that eating it in mass actually is gonna make you kind of sick. And while it feels good, right, your brain is gonna get that delicious dopamine rush, it's probably not going to be sustainable. It's not gonna be something that you can carry on day after day because, again, you're gonna feel nauseous. But if you are focusing on whole foods, if you are focusing on whole grains, potatoes, healthy pastas, healthy protein sources, which we'll talk about in a second here, this stuff is gonna be a whole lot easier to eat in mass. At first, maybe not, right? You don't get that dopamine feedback the same way as you would with something that's like super high in saturated fat or super high in salt, like, a Domino's pizza or something like that. And I'm not saying don't eat those things once in a while. If you are a skinny person, you can 100% prioritize just eating a lot of food, and sometimes that's gonna come as junk food, and that's okay. But if you do this over time, number one, over the years, you're gonna develop health issues. The main thing that I'm talking about here is that short-term, sick feeling. If you're already struggling to eat a lot, eating a whole bunch of unhealthy food is not going to help. It's just gonna further turn you off from food, and this is one of the last things that we want. Now, with that being said, I wanna talk about some of the tips and tricks, and I guess towards the end of this section, we'll talk about how do you find out your requirements. Your requirements for overall calories, your requirements for protein, for carbs, for fat, based on your body type, based on your goals. We'll talk about that after I give you some of the most beneficial tips that have helped me put on muscle mass. The first sort of hack, so to speak, is using natural sugars before you eat your meals. I have found that if I start every meal with a piece of fruit or some kind of natural sugar, it makes it a whole lot easier to put that meal down and really to get more food out of that meal. I did an interview with a nutritionist a few years ago, which I wish I still had, but my old Instagram got banned. And she essentially explained that this stimulates your gut. This also stimulates your brain to be excited about consuming more food. You are leveraging that dopamine response in the healthiest way possible. Give it a try, see if it works for you. The second piece of advice is right along with that idea of stimulating your appetite, and that is to take B1 supplements. You will find that if you look into appetite stimulating supplements, B1 is usually the primary ingredient. I am making this as a sit down and shotgun approach video, so science in a later video, but this is another one of those things that if you give it a try, drop a comment, let us know if it actually worked for you. And of course, there are a plethora of other supplements that people say are good for stimulating appetite. And again, if you just want to buy an appetite stimulator, I do find that these are a little bit more expensive, especially if you're planning on consuming this stuff for a long period of time. And so it is a little bit cheaper just to purchase B1 supplements or some other kind of supplement, maybe magnesium that stimulates appetite. And so that is just one little piece of advice to throw your way right now. The final tip that I want to talk about in the nutrition section is something that has worked wonders for me in the past. And that is fasting. Fasting consistently, fasting using a variety of different methods. For the past 10 years, I have been using intermittent fasting on a pretty regular basis. I am not super committed to it at this point, but intermittent fasting was a game changer for me. Fasting is, number one, a great way to increase autophagy. Autophagy is essentially where your cells recycle themselves on a more regular basis. This keeps you healthier. This keeps you utilizing cellular regeneration as a way to put on muscle, right? To gain protein, recycling those amino acids to build more muscle. It also increases HGH production in your body, right? Human growth hormone. This increases testosterone, which is a really great benefit for you if you are a man especially. And most people that are fasting on a regular basis explain that it is a whole lot easier to put on muscle mass. It is a whole lot easier to stay shredded. And part of this is because, especially at the beginning of the day, if you get some kind of physical exercise in, you are burning the glycogen out of your blood and prioritizing fat burning as your primary energy source. Which I know if you're like, man, I just want to put on a bunch of weight, I'm not worried about whether it's fat. But long term, this is something to consider. You'll feel a whole lot better, you'll look a whole lot better if you are prioritizing putting on muscle mass and not just any type of fat mass. And if you're worried that, hey, this is not what I want to prioritize, I'm not worried, like I do want to put on a little bit of fat as well, I promise you this is not as much of a big deal for you as you think. You'll find that it is just a whole lot easier for your body to uptake the nutrients that you're consuming anyway if you're fasting. And because the digestive process is the most energy intensive process that your body goes through, you'll find that if you're fasting on a regular basis, especially some kind of intermittent fasting, it is a whole lot easier to hold onto the calories that you do consume. And just as an additional anecdote, because I know a lot of you are going to be concerned about this, the biggest, the strongest, the most shredded I ever was and I really ever felt was when I was doing one meal a day. I highly recommend that you guys look into the research and the practices of Dr. Noon Amin-Ra. He is a vegan powerlifter and he only eats one meal a day. And he swears by the benefits, he swears by the science, saying that not only is it easier to gain muscle, right, to gain strength, it is also one of the healthiest things that you can do for your body, as he says, because your body does not have as much detritus sitting in your gut. Less energy focused on digesting, more energy focused on putting out energy in the gym and building muscle. Now, I totally should have started out this section with helping you figure out what your protein needs are, what your overall calorie needs are based on your body type and your goals, but these things are generally really easy to figure out. What I recommend that you do is go to MyFitnessPal, enter your information, again, what your body type, your height, your weight, and what your goals are, and then do the same thing with websites like Chronometer. The Vegan Fitness app, which is my app, it does the same thing for you. So if you want to sign up, let me know. But my recommendation is find multiple sources and then you'll kind of create this range for yourself. The reality is you don't need to be exact. You just need to be consistent staying in that window. Because if you are staying within that range over a year, 2 years, I guarantee that you will see the results that you want to see. And if you do want more help figuring out exactly how to do this, there is a link below to my free protein guide. It's essentially a video and PDF workshop that guides you through exactly how to figure out how much protein you need, but not only that, carbs, like what the fat percentage that you should be eating is. And again, this is a vegan protein guide, so even if you're not vegan, I do hope that this is super helpful for you. Link below. So the next section is the best advice that I could come up with when it comes to fitness. I think that the best thing that you can prioritize for building muscle overall is compound lifts. The squat, squat, the bench, the deadlift. Some people include military press in there. I don't really do military press myself. I just think that overhead movements are a great way to fuck up your shoulders. Another video for another day. So compound lifts, right? They work the most muscles in your body in one single movement. Usually they are prioritizing one large muscle group. So with the bench, that is your chest and your delts. For the squat, that is your glutes, your quads, and your hamstrings. And for the deadlift, same thing, glutes, quads, hamstrings, but also quite a lot of upper body as well. Now they call them core lifts because your core is doing a huge amount of stabilizing work when you're doing these lifts. I think this is a great way to begin your workouts and prioritize doing low reps but high intensity. Get as much work out of these lifts using these schemes. And then what I recommend that you do is move on to more accessory lifts. One of the most intelligent bodybuilders I know, who happens to be a great friend of mine as well, he has always sworn by angles. Hitting muscles from as many different angles as possible to encourage as much dimensional growth as possible. When it comes to shoulders, if you're used to just doing delt flies, try to do those delt flies from many different angles. Or I guess technically they're called delt raises, my bad. Again, all you're doing here is encouraging that muscle to grow from as many different dimensions as possible. And ultimately, this is what is going to build the most size. We all know that classic concept of hitting plateaus as muscles get stronger. Typically, the deeper you get into your fitness journey, the harder and harder it is to build muscle, to build strength, which is fine because you're committed to the process at that point, right? The process working out feels like therapy. So you want to do it, right? You want to show up and do the work. But this is a little known secret by some of the biggest, some of the strongest people on planet Earth, which if you're a newbie, you can still leverage for yourself. One of the ways that I do this is by seeing if I can redesign every workout that I have 3 ways. Again, I still recommend starting out every single workout with a compound lift. This is a great way to make sure that you're getting that full body exercise, really pushing yourself to the max and building your power. But if you have a particular shoulder day, see if you can rebuild that shoulder day 3 different ways, using as many different exercises as possible. If you have a particular back day, see if you can rebuild that back day 3 different ways, again, using all different exercises. Number 1, this is a great way to experiment and learn a bunch of different exercises, practicing proper technique and becoming a more well-rounded athlete. And ironically, that's also what we're doing with dimensions. We are becoming more well-rounded individuals as we are building more dimension to our muscles. If you guys want to see specific workout routines that you can do, to diversify, go ahead and drop a comment below. I am always happy to show you guys very specific information. Again, I gatekeep absolutely nothing. So the final section we're going to talk about is rest and recovery. I want to share a funny story with you because I think it really effectively demonstrates the mentality of somebody who is a great athlete for somebody that just doesn't really understand the methods at all. I used to train martial arts with a super jacked dude, and this was when I was 14, kind of just getting into the idea of bodybuilding or putting on muscle mass in general. One of the things that he explained to my karate school, and keep in mind, this guy was actually a relatively low belt level, was that he sleeps for 10 hours every single night. And my karate instructor, she was kind of a small, relatively petite woman. It was like, what the fuck? How is that possible? How are you going to do anything else with your life? And I remember thinking, again, because my parents were really big into stress management, meditation at that point, they still are, was, wow, that is really, really good for you. He must be really relaxed. He must be in really great health. And I said that out loud. And this woman was a bit of an egotistical person. And she shot back at me, but he's just not going to be able to maintain that for the rest of his life. And I think the dude was pretty young. I mean, I think he must have been in his 20s at this point. And maybe she's right. Like when you have a family, when you have kids, maybe you get a more stressful job, which is why everybody should get into entrepreneurship and be able to control their own schedule. But I digress. Another video for another day. Maybe she was right. But now that I have done the research, right, now that I have been studying some of the greatest athletes of all time, you will find that one of the consistent factors across the board is sleep. Just a few examples. LeBron James sleeps an average of 12 hours every single night. Roger Federer sleeps an average of 12 hours every night. Usain Bolt sleeping an average of 10 hours every single night, even up to 14 hours a night when he is in a recovery focused mode. Now, I'm not telling you need to go prioritize sleeping 14 hours a night. I'm not even telling you need to, average 10 hours every single night. But what I am telling you is that most of the biggest bodybuilders will tell you that prioritizing sleep and getting significantly more sleep is one of the biggest factors that will help with building muscle, that will increase your muscle gain overall. This is something I can relate to and most of my bodybuilder friends can relate to, which is that in those periods of our life when we were prioritizing getting 9-10 hours of sleep every single night, we were finding it so much easier to put on strength and, most importantly, muscle mass. So one of the things to think about is if you are consistently stressed out right now, if you consistently find that your sleep schedule is fucked up and you just don't really know what to do about it, consider trying to prioritize sleep. Consider putting your sleep schedule above anything else. Whenever you're late to your job, you don't don't think, oh man, I'm late to my job, and you just kind of like shuffle to the door and you know, casually go to work. You go to work like the damn house is on fire. Why do you not do that with your routines? Why don't you do that with meal prepping? Why don't you do that with your sleep schedule? Why, when it hits 9:30 p.m., do you not rush to your bed and get ready for sleep? Well, to be honest, it's probably because your personal goals are not respected as much as the external world's goals for you. The obligations that you have to your family, to your schoolwork if you have it, to your career. You hold these things in higher importance because you do not respect yourself as much. And so one of the things to get serious about is, do you actually really respect these goals? Are you watching this YouTube video as another passive way of saying like, hey, I'm actually going towards my goals by passively watching this YouTube video? Or are you actually listening for that life-changing advice? One of those things to really think about is whether you actually really respect these goals for yourself, whether you really respect yourself. And so prioritize your sleep. And beyond that, prioritize those powerful fitness sessions, those fitness sessions where you are really challenging yourself. Make sure you go into that gym every single workout and push yourself to the max. Make sure you are scheduling the time to plan out your meals, to go and buy food, to meal prep, to eat that food. And make sure these priorities are top of mind, because this is how you represent that respect for yourself. This is how you indicate that importance for yourself. And if you believe in this stuff, how you indicate that importance to the universe. Make these things a priority, plan it out, make sure that you know exactly when every single aspect of this journey is gonna happen throughout your day. And I guarantee the outcome is going to happen for you. So like I said, if you want some more help with this stuff, click the link below, sign up for a coaching session. The first one is always free. We'll talk about your goals, your challenges, and then together we will bridge that gap. Like this video, my friends, hit that subscribe button, hit that little notification bell so you know when my videos come out. If you have any comments or questions, drop them below. I will get back to you. And without further ado, peace, namaste, much love. I will talk to you all later.